Like classic split ends. It's what's the time? 22 minutes past 8 o'clock. Listen to Workers Radio on 88.9 FM. We've been spending about an hour with Henry Makow from Canada.
Henry Makow from Canada, from henrymakow.com. You can go to his website. He's done 3 books. It's been a very interesting morning there, Henry. We're going to talk about Julia Gillard, our Prime Minister of Australia. What have we got on her?
Well, Jack, I was...
You gave me an interesting article from your website, which I was quite blown away. I thought I got on everything that was interesting of yours, but this one was very interesting. Can you tell us what's going on with this?
Yeah, well, first off, you say you have Arthur Christian as a guest, right?
Yeah, we have him on every Thursday.
Does he think that Julia Gillard is bestia? Have you dealt with that?
I gave him a call when you gave me this article there, Henry, and he said some... He recollects because he got this email, so I've got to dig more deep. Arthur was just going, well, this guy gave me this email and I was back there and whatever.
Okay. Jack, I'll provide the background. There was... Arthur sent me that testimony from the last testimony of Satanist Frater 616.
Yeah.
I did a synopsis of it, and it was my synopsis went out around the world, so that people found out about this last testimony of this Satanist, because it was really a kind of a cry for redemption. He really came clean, and that was published on my site under Australian Adept Unveiled World Satanic Control. And you can just Google Australian Adept Unveiled World Satanic Control to find it. Go to my site and use the search there as well. But essentially, this adept said that Australia and the whole world is controlled by this satanic cult, but that Sydney is a major center for this cult, which is called the Alpha Lodge.
Yeah,
and they basically run Australia and have a great influence on the whole world. And in his last testimony, he said that some of the deadliest, most effective, and disarming assassins are women. The outer head of the Alpha Lodge Australia is a very highly placed and successful federal politician whose satanic name is Bestia.
Now, what's Bestia? What does that? What name is?
I don't know what Bestia means, but it's. I think that the chances are quite good that Gillard was the head of the Alpha Lodge. If I had to bet on it, I would bet that she was. And so that's just that's where we're at. Now, the man that made the last will and testament of 616, the man who made it public, the man who sent it to Arthur Christian, goes by the name of Aloysius Fosdyke. Aloysius Fosdyke.
That's interesting.
He's the guy that sent it out. Over the past 2 or 3 years, Fosdyke has written about a dozen articles for me. So you could just Google Aloysius Fosdyke.
Yep.
Oh, and but one of the most interesting is where he implies that the head of the Alpha Lodge was also something called a toilet vampiress. In other words, these Satanists go in for all these disgusting rituals involving defecation, and somehow some of them manage to distinguish themselves and rise through the ranks accordingly. So one of the articles is Satanist hints Oz PM is toilet vampiress. You could probably find it by Googling Satanist hints Oz PM is. Toilet vampire, but toilet vampiress is, of course, the feminine. Anyway, in this little note to me, he wrote, Aloysius Fosdyke wrote, he wrote that this was before the election. This was when Kevin Rudd was running.
Yeah.
He said we concentrate on bureaucrats, long-term backroom men and women who provide the framework for elected officials to work within. The agenda doesn't change. In other words, the politicians are just frontmen. They're just figureheads.
Yeah.
And they're usually Masons. They're constantly doing these Masonic hand signs.
Well, most of our prime ministers, if you go to the 66 Goulburn Street, the main lodge in Sydney, all our prime ministers are all Freemasons. You can see their pictures there. If you can go in there by public, and you can see most of.
That's right. And although Freemasons of the lower ranks will deny because they don't know. Satanism is Freemasonry is the Church of Satan.
The Lucifer Morning Star, yeah.
Yeah. Now, he goes on and writes, Fosdyke writes, all Australian politicians are dedicated to keeping Australia in a constitutional no man's land. Australians don't understand this, and just as well. The same trick is used against the governments of New Zealand, Canada, the UK, and Northern Ireland, and even the United States. And Fosdyke writes, I laughed till I cried at the reinterment ceremony for the Australian dead. It was broadcast in Australia last night, and this was in July 20th, 2010. All of these Australians died in vain, and Australians politicians working in conjunction with the Return Services League and other vested interests make sure that nothing changes. This is our agenda and one of the strongest economic and political tools we have internationally. And the sheeple have no idea. So he's just chortling away at how everything is controlled by this satanic cult, the Alpha Lodge in Sydney.
Yeah,
and then he goes on describe in a note. Actually, the order of the toilet was described in the original Frater 616 testimony. And the toilet goddess is the highest rank, but there's also going down the ranks. There's the piss princess, the princess of the porcelain, the dominatrix of the cubicle, the mistress, and so on. Wow. I mean, I don't go into their disgusting rituals. They're too repulsive. But I mean, wouldn't it be outrageous if the Prime Minister of Australia achieved her rank in this fashion?
In the order of the toilet goddess. She must have went up there. That's just interesting stuff. I don't know what to say with that. What do you think about that there, Jaime?
Personally, I think that all of this type of stuff is just... I think it's not just, but I think it's satanic Satanism. However, I think what they're doing to the public and how they control it, the only reason why they can work their way up to the ranks is because they swear their allegiance to whatever this force is that Henry was saying is consciously enslaving the world, and they basically give themselves totally to it. And the names of these things are completely irrelevant, and they can start another order tomorrow called the Order of the Ingrown Hair, and then call themselves, the infected hair as level 1, level 2, and they can just make up these different names. That's not really important.
There's a priest. I know a person, Henry, his name's Brian Shaw. He's a devout Catholic, and he fights the Freemasonry that's infiltrated the churches. And he's told me about this Alpha House that some interesting stuff is in there. That it's just interesting to see what's going on. But Australia is pretty well blinded in that sense, and I don't know what to say about what can Australians do? Is just to stand up, have a referendum, but we're just blind about it.
Well, I think conditions have to deteriorate somewhat before people will take action. I think the reason people are in the streets in Egypt is because of the widespread poverty, and I think when economic conditions deteriorate, people will maybe spurred to action.
So that means we've got a long way to go because we're selling all our resources to everywhere else. Interesting stuff. Have you got any plans for a next book there, Henry?
Yeah, I'll put out another book when I have enough first-rate material from my website.
Is there anything, there's subjects that you're going on with at the moment you can give us a hint of?
You know, I'm continuing to try to show the hidden hand and how it works. That's what I do all the time, just exposing and try to give people the big picture of how this satanic force is basically sucking the wealth, all the wealth of the world. So there's like a cancer. So there's nothing left for the rest of the world to subsist on.
So just on a closing note, what do you think the end goal after they've managed to suck the life out of everything? We're all robot slaves. What do you think it's all for?
You know, it's there. If you look at God and if you see God as infinite love, you know, it's infinite, right? Well, they're opposed to that, so it's really infinite hate. It's just blackness piled on blackness, depravity piled on depravity. I'm afraid it's not a pretty picture. I would love to be wrong about this.
All right, thanks, Henry. I appreciate you coming on Workers Radio, and all the best for your work.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Bye
Henry.
for now.
Thanks,
Bye.
Henry.
Cheers, mate.